Hello, 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 coaches and leaders. I am so today we're gonna have an unusual episode. I'm joined here with my dear friend and colleague Mia Pumo, and we are gonna have a debate today. One of the things that I value in coaching is that there's often not a right or wrong, black or white answer to things. And I know Mia values this too. Mia's been a guest multiple times on the podcast. And so today we're going to debate norms. And so we actually have different like norms in setting norms in meetings. And this came about because one day I was thinking about norms and I have seen them created through all the years that I've been consulting and coaching. And I've not seen them effectively change behaviors. And Mia has. And so we have different stances on setting norms. And so we're going to actually have a debate today. And we started this on a call. And then I said, let's record a podcast. So this is unscripted. So first of all, Mia, I'm excited to have you on the show and to have this conversation with you.
I'm so excited to be back on the show. It's been a while. And I love how this came about so organically. Like, literally, we call each other and just have like coach to coach conversations. What are you seeing here? What are you doing here? And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, Becca just goes, "What do you think about norms?" And I was like, hmm. And then we just got into this wonderful, deep conversation where we found out we had differing viewpoints. So, yeah,
Yes.
this will be fun.
Yes. I'm excited. Um, All right, so we're gonna jump in here, and we have a few guiding questions for us to discuss our different perspectives. And I want to acknowledge something that I've just to zoom out for a second, some work I've been doing around adult stages of development is that there are four different stages, and folks listening, you some folks, the way that we make meaning of the world, sometimes some of us really value black and white thinking, which is fine because that's where we are. I want a yes or no. This conversation might be difficult for you. There's some of us that really love being in the gray area. Let's sit and debate, and there's no right answer. Like at the end of this conversation, we will not leave saying there's a right and wrong answer. I'm not here to convince you. You're not here to convince me. And so, folks that love to sit in the gray area for a while, you'll be like, this is great. So, I just wanted to acknowledge that folks listening, you might have different reactions to this conversation as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what I find myself saying over and over again recently when I'm working with coaches and leaders is this is messy work. Like
Yeah.
there are no hard and fast answers. Usually you got to get in there, you got to get dirty. It can feel really uncomfortable and ambiguous at times,
Mhm.
but if you keep working through that, like you come out the other side and like the sun comes out from behind the cloud and you're like, oh.
Oh,
So maybe that'll happen for somebody today too.
yeah, exactly. I love it. All right. So we're talking about setting norms. And the first thing I want to talk about is what is the point of norms? Why is this a thing? Why are we setting them? What is the objective of setting norms?
Yeah, so if you haven't guessed already, my stance is that I actually like norms and I've seen them used effectively
Yes.
in like all day professional learning settings and also in groups, PLCs, groups, teams that meet on a regular basis. So, kind of both of those. And I will say that I didn't start out feeling this way.
Mhm.
So I kind of started out similar to maybe what Becca's feeling is that, do we really have to do norms? Like, ugh. But I've come around and I've learned to
Yeah.
love them. So I would say the heart of my argument today is that norms are a shortcut to psychological safety.
Oh,
And it's a way to get there quickly, especially like in my work, because I am working in different school districts, different states all the time. So I'm working with new groups of people all the time and people who don't always work together. And so we have to create trust really fast sometimes in order to go deep in our work if we're only together for a day or two, or maybe 4 to 5 days throughout the year. So I think it's a shortcut to psychological safety. It helps people to create a space where they know the expectations and they can feel safe to maybe take a couple of risks and be truthful and honest. And I just think we get better conversations that way. So that's why I think they do work.
Okay. That's why you think they work. So, okay, so this is my thought. I think, well, just to zoom out for a second, I, I was asking like why do we do this in general, whether they work or not? And my point of view, and tell me if you feel like this is limited. I think norms exist for behavior change, right? It's like norms are existing because we want people to behave a certain way that creates psychological safety, that has meetings run efficiently, that and effectively, right? That like our goals of the meeting actually get met. Do you, well, for like just to zoom out, do you feel like I'm missing anything that it's about behavior change for effective behaviors in meetings?
Uh, I would say yes, and I
Okay.
think it is about that.
Hmm.
But I think it's also about mindsets and beliefs,
Yep.
which, as you know, lead to our behaviors, right?
Yes.
So I think it touches and makes us think about our own personal beliefs, and it sets those clear expectations for the day. But also, when it comes to the behavior part, um, when meetings go off the rails,
Yep.
which they often do,
Yep.
or even PD sessions get out of hand or take a left turn that you were not expecting, I think it can help you bring everybody back.
Hmm.
And that's like a behavior connection because it goes off based on some type of behavior that happened, but
Hmm.
this is a way to bring adults back without offending people
Hmm.
and continuing to show professionalism and respect, but getting people back on track.
Okay. So this is okay. I have so many things to say. One thing is that my point of view is that in general, I'm not, this is not like an all or nothing thing, but in general, I have found norms to be ineffective. I don't think in general, the way that we do them, that they work, and I don't find them human centered. And so this is my perspective. There are four reasons why I think they're not human centered. So, well, one is I don't think they're effective because I don't see them often changing behaviors, and this is my perspective. And you've actually seen behaviors changed, and mindsets is at the heart of my work, right? And so my these are my four issues with norms. One is I think they're rooted in control and not connection.
Mm,
I think that they're written to like no side conversations or be on time or turn your phones off, right? Or put them away. I think
mm,
it's about like compliance and not belonging. Like I think our attention is on the wrong thing. We skip the why and not and for the what. So, in my experience, norms have been what to do and not addressing why we're doing it or not doing it. Right.
okay.
So, it's like if people are on their phones, it's like, okay, you have the rule, put your phone away or the norm. And I'm, I'm asking the question, why are people on their phones? Like, do they not value, right? This catalyst mindsets come in value mindset. Do they not value this? Like, let's address why they don't value this meeting, right? And then the last one is we're treating the symptom and not the source.
Okay.
So again, it's like no side conversations. Well, why are people having side conversations? Do they have things on their mind that they find more important? Let's talk about that. Why do they find the fifth grade end of year ceremony more important than what we're teaching next week? Let's talk about that, like why we don't find teaching next week important versus making this blanket rule. All right, just no side conversations. Remember, no side conversations. Okay.
Okay.
Those are my thoughts. I'm
Okay.
ready.
I'm actually going to agree with you
Okay.
because I've seen it happen the way you're describing.
Hmm.
So I think it goes back to the way we create the norms. And this is where my shift
Hmm.
happened. When I
Yeah.
found better ways to create norms,
Hmm.
And maybe even calling them something besides norms.
Yeah.
Because I love those of you who are listening and not watching this on YouTube, you missed the eye roll with the word norms, um, which I love. And
Yeah.
yes, they do feel like rules and like rules for adults. So it feels like we're trying to control behavior,
Yeah.
which is what we do with
With
students,
children.
by the way,
Hmm.
in classrooms, which also sometimes doesn't work. Because the rules are just nebulous. They're just like, where did they come from? They're just pulled out of the sky, or they mean something to the person leading the day, but not to everybody else. So they're not going to work. So I think it's similar in that way. But I disagree with they are not creating connection
Mm.
and belonging.
Okay.
So again, I think if you create your norms in a way that speaks to people's values,
Hmm.
then it actually makes us feel more connected and more like we belong. So to me, it feels like when it's done well, it feels like a collaboration
Hmm.
of how we want the day to go and that we're all deciding together what that looks like or how we want our meetings to go week after week. What do we want that to look like? We're collaborating to decide that together. What's going to work for us? Why are we meeting in the first place?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I've started now, I start all my, even my 1 day PD sessions with like, why are we gathered here today, people? Let's talk about
Hmm.
that first.
Hmm.
So we get to that. If this is important to you and you're here, whether you chose to be here or somebody told you you have to be here, here's the purpose. Do we all agree like this is important? And so there's several different ways to create norms. And I think the way you're describing, the old way that I saw it done that didn't work was just asking people, okay, what do we want our norms to be? And people
Uh-huh.
just will call out the things like, no sidebar conversations, let's stay off
Yeah.
our phone, like the things you expect to hear.
Yeah.
But you're right, not tying it to our values, not tying it to our purpose of the day, they just don't mean that much.
Hmm. Yeah.
So when we ask, why are we here? I've used some of the Center for Leadership and Educational Equity protocols. They have
Uh-huh.
several different ways to make norms that I feel like are more beneficial, like asking people what, first of all, think about yourself. How are you as a learner going to be successful today? Or how are you as a member of this team going to be successful in this meeting today? So, first, you are connecting it to yourself,
Hmm.
and then you share those with the group and you kind of talk about with a partner or in small groups, and you come up with your list based on what was important to me. What am I getting out of this?
Hmm.
Start with that because
Hmm.
then people do feel like, oh, I do belong here because they started with what's going to work for me today. So I think
Yeah.
that's one way to get it to feeling more connected and more like a sense of belonging.
I have a question for you. How do you know you're saying, we're agreeing on how we want to show up today? How do you know people actually agree?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think. I mean, you have that. Can you really know if they actually agree? I think by doing it in stages it helps. So again,
Hmm.
starting with what's going to work for me, talking with somebody in the group about that, because
Hmm.
then you start to get that sense of shared, like, oh yeah, like this helps me as a learner, this helps me as a participant,
Hmm.
this helps me as a member of the team. So you get some agreement in small pockets before you just ask people. But then you do take it to the whole group. And what I always do is once we get our list as a group, I just say, like, is there anything on here that you absolutely don't agree with or think that does not work for me? Like, speak now.
Hmm.
And we're creating this safe space, so let's start now. If there's something on this list that you don't agree with, that you don't think is going to help you or this group be
Yeah.
productive, let's take it off the list.
Okay. I have so many questions from that. How can it, I don't believe if someone disagreed. Okay, two things. One, I don't think if someone disagreed, they would actually say it. I don't. I don't think our schools are safe enough. And I'm just making wild, broad, sweeping statements. I'm not saying every school's like this. I'm saying I don't think we make it, I don't think we normalize disagreeing enough in schools with our culture of niceness that someone would feel comfortable saying, like, I don't think we should put our phones away. I don't. So the one thing is, I don't believe if someone disagreed that they would actually raise their hand and say it, especially if they saw everyone else agreeing. That's
Mhm.
one thing. My second thing is, in my experience, I think we make safe enough norms that they're just easy to agree. Like, yes, we all agree, put your phones away. Yes, no side conversations. And I want to hear what kinds of norms you come up with. Because I think part of it is, why would people disagree with like these generic, like, yeah, these are general, like, good behaviors. I'm not going to disagree with that. So
Okay.
I would love your thoughts on that.
Okay. So, first of all, I have had people disagree.
Tell
Mhm.
me, what did it sound like?
It sounded like that's not going to work for me. Now, you're right. I would say most people are not comfortable enough to do that.
Uh-huh.
However, it does happen. So, again, as the person facilitating, you want to create the space for
Yeah.
people to be able to disagree. So, I've done that. I've seen it happen.
Okay.
Um, where they see something on the list, and maybe it is the cell phone issue, because I even sometimes feel uncomfortable. People with children might not want to completely put their cell phone away where they can't see it or be
Mhm.
interrupted in case something happened to their child, or maybe they're taking care of an aging parent and they really need to be accessible all day.
Mhm.
Um, so there are extenuating circumstances where people might say that's not going to work for me.
Mhm.
I've had people push back on the laptop issue there because they like to take notes on their laptop. They don't want
Mhm.
to keep it closed when we're supposedly engaging in our conversations. Um, so we talk about that, and then we usually pivot to, okay, well, are we going to close all the tabs and only have the one open that we're engaging in the workshop or the team meeting with? Same thing with the agenda. A lot of people have the agenda on their laptop. So I think there are examples of people disagreeing, and it leads to better conversation where we get to the actual norms that are going to work for the group because we've talked through them and we haven't just said, oh yeah, let's do the five general ones and we all agree to it.
Yeah. Well, I think, I've done quite a bit of thinking around why in general, this is just my experience. Like, I walk into schools and I see norms put up, oh, we have norms, and it's like, and they're not either not being followed, they're just not creating behavior change. Like, that's my litmus test. Like, if the norms are XYZ and they're not happening, like, they're not effectively doing the thing they're supposed to do. And I've done a lot of thinking, like, why do we keep doing this? Why do we, like, as schools, we're like, norms, let's do this. And I think it's quite ineffective. And I think this is one of my theories. I think one of the reasons why we keep doing this ineffective thing is for protection. I think it's easy to make a norm, a rule. Like, we agree on this rule, this surface level rule about our behavior, so that we don't actually have to dive deeper to look at why we're lacking connection, why we're lacking value, why we're lacking our belief we can be successful, which actually requires some vulnerability, right? And some messy conversations around the root cause of why our meetings are not effective. So
Mhm.
that's a theory that I have.
I think the norms that are not working
Yeah.
are the ones that people just create and put them on the wall or put them on the agenda, but
Yep.
never look at them again.
Mhm.
So norms should be living, breathing documents, and they should be referred back to at different points maybe throughout the meeting, at the end of each meeting, like did we follow our norms? Um, another reason I've kind of changed my mind about them is because I've worked with these master facilitators who have referred back to the norms throughout the day. So let's say if it's a group that meets like a recurring meeting, then at the begin you've set the norms and you don't want to just like review them every time. It gets old and meaningless. But ask them to choose like which one do you want to lean into today.
Yeah,
So
that's I think that's good.
it kind of makes you, it does help you set an intention for that day or that meeting. I've seen people who come back from lunch and say, okay, let's review our norms after lunch, just like a quick, which ones did we follow this morning? Were there any that didn't work for us? So again, a time to adjust, um, and be on. And usually by then, people are more comfortable
Yep.
and they're willing to share more. So, um, and then at the end of the day, again, like, okay, which of our norms did we live into? What worked well for us? That kind of thing. That keeps them uh, fresh, and it does help them to lead to the behavior changes that you're talking about and not just be like words on the wall that don't really lead to any change.
Yeah. All right. I want to hear from you. How have you done norms so that they work?
I will say there is a longer process to
Hmm.
creating norms that really hits on some of your objections, especially in terms of being human-centered, um, feeling belonging, feeling connection, those types of things.
Hmm.
So I mentioned the one where we start with us and what works for us, but there's an even longer. So it depends on your team. It depends on how much time you have. If this is like a half day workshop, you're not going to spend an hour,
Hmm. Right.
creating. So you have to judge based on the context of how much time you want to spend on this, and if they're even necessary. But the longer version actually starts with a connection piece where people share personal stories and you glean information from some personal stories that people share about their values and beliefs. And then you actually make a list of created, shared team values
Okay.
from your personal values. And you
Okay.
actually start with that
Hmm.
before you ever create norms. Then you take your list of team values
Okay.
and you build your norms from the team values. Now, those are, if you, so we've done that like at the beginning of the school year for leadership teams or PLCs that are going to be working together on that consistent basis.
Okay.
That's a very, very important process to go through to make the norms work and to
Yeah.
make them really valuable for your team
Hmm.
and something your team would not want to be without.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most important, you asked earlier about like some of the norms that we've created. I think some of the most important ones are the ones about what are we going to do when things go wrong? Because they're going to go wrong. Like we're
Yeah.
human.
Yeah.
So if we plan a little bit ahead for that, then
Yeah.
it can help us. At least we have some expectations, we have some guidelines, and when the leader or facilitator has to say like, okay, guys, like we're getting a little bit snippy with each other.
Hmm.
Let's go back to what we agreed on and why we agreed to this. And if that's based in values, it usually brings people back to the table much more quickly than if it was just like, well, we agreed to be respectful. If you're not talking about what respectful means,
Right.
that's not going to mean a whole lot. If you haven't
Right.
done what does respect look like and sound like in this group on this team,
Hmm.
you won't know where to go from there.
Hmm.
So, we talk about how we don't have time for this. We don't have time for this. We've got to get to the work. I know this takes some time, but if we do this pre-work, the real work will be much more productive, go much faster, and you will get to the goals that you are seeking and the outcomes that you want to achieve much more quickly and with joy.
Now, I've done agreements, like that is the closest I've gotten to norms. And I actually don't ask people. I don't The way I do it is I'm not asking them what they want. I say we're agreeing to what I brought. And it's often it's things that I assume it's going to be a blind spot. So some of the agreements that I bring, and I'm not claiming that they're wildly effective, but I say things like be coachable is one of the agreements. Another one is be honest with how you feel. Another one is be willing to shift your mindset instead of holding on to the complaint. So those are things like this is Becca language. This is a context I'm bringing. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm gonna let you. We're gonna do this co-created thing. I don't because I think maybe and I'll just admit I think I'm not interested in creating the same thing that's always been created. I want to create a space for transformational learning in our schools. are not prepared for those in general. Our schools are informational learning institutes for the most part, and I want norms or agreements or ground rules, whatever we call them, to support that. Okay, what are your thoughts?
Yes. And I think that can work actually. I think that can really be effective because if they're not already working within a culture
Hmm.
that has that openness
Hmm.
and that psychological safety that we talked about,
Hmm.
if you're bringing that in and you're saying, I'm working with you today, I'm the leader, I'm the facilitator, here are the expectations that I bring, that can
Yep.
actually create a sense of safety for people like, oh, she expects this and this. So today, like it's putting up your own guardrails. Again, it's clarity though. It's
Hmm.
clear expectations,
Hmm.
and it actually makes people feel safer if they are not used to that, or you think maybe they couldn't get to those points because
Yep.
they haven't gone deep enough. They won't get past the surface level norms.
Yep.
I think that's a great strategy actually to introduce. I mean, do you have any conversation about it with them? Do they get
Yeah. Yeah.
the
We talk about
input
what
like,
that looks
how do you
like.
feel about these? Or are there any of these that
Yeah.
you don't think you can agree to?
I do ask if I ask if everyone, agrees. I mean, I know in the
But you don't
look,
know if they
I'm
really
being
agree.
real, and I'm like, do they feel safe enough to say they disagree? And then I have everyone decide on one that they're going to that they're going to focus on, just like you do, for the session. And I do one of the agreements is to be present. So I'm not, it's a way of being and not a behavior. I don't tell them to put away their phones, but we do talk about what does being present look like, including your Apple Watches. Folks,
Don't get me started.
your Apple Watch is a phone on your wrist. It counts. Anyway.
Mhm.
All
Yeah, it's a huge
right.
distraction.
This is my
Yeah.
1 minute.
So
Ugh.
I can see that working and revisiting those. So I know you as a facilitator because we've worked
Yes.
together before, and I know that you create an amazing sense of safety in the
Mhm.
workshops that you do. So if you start the day with that, maybe people who don't know you that well might not disagree with any of those. They might like, okay. But if you revisit it, say after lunch or at the end of the day, and that then they've experienced you and your safety and your trust, then I think they'll have better conversation about, okay, this one was really hard for me, or this one, I really appreciate the fact that you brought this one. And you may want to ask specific questions like those around which of these worked best for you, which of these were a struggle for you, and get some feedback on, how those are going. So, sorry.
Okay. All right.
I've
I have
got
a
sorry about that.
I have a I
My ringer is
Okay, so I'm going to propose some ways we can do norms differently. Look, we can call it different things, but in education, we do this thing where we call it a different thing, but do the same thing. And so I'm just not going to pretend. Look, we can call it norms, we can call it ground rules, we can call it agreements. I don't care. I don't think changing the name will change how we do things unless we actually change how we do it. So I'm going to keep calling them norms for now. But I want to propose some ways we could have more human-centered norms. And they
okay.
are we could make agreements that honor our needs being human-centered is addressing our unmet needs. They could evolve with the team's growth. We I would want norms that focus on connection, like what if the I don't know, what if a guiding question is what norms or ground rules do we need that actually help us connect better? That's an interesting question.
Mhm.
Um we could add things like the behavior, and then it could be like so that or we value, right? We're putting away our phones so that blah blah blah. Um we could it could be rooted like in emotion and purpose, right? Which is you start with the values. And then this is my big proposal. I think we can make norms. I've not done this yet. Because actually in my PDs, I actually really like don't set norms. I don't know. Like I just don't. I'm not going to do a thing I don't believe in, right? That I don't think is effective.
Mhm.
My new proposal is I think we could set norms related to the catalyst mindsets. And I think we could use
Ooh.
them as guiding questions or even like, how are we going to make sure this is value mindset, make sure this PD or this meeting is valuable for me? How can I make sure that, how am I going to feel, what is success going to look like, success mindset at the end of this meeting, and how I'm going to voice, I agree to voice when I don't believe we can be successful, right? Growth mindset. I'm going to, I don't know, I agree to embrace the messy process instead of demanding an answer right away, right? So it could be like a that kind of agreement, or even like voice when things get dysregulating around the messy middle of improvement. um what belonging mindset. I'm going to lean into connection instead of control. That's too generic though. I don't know. But like looking at how are we going to create connection instead of control in this meeting? Maybe that could be a guiding question. Or even look at like question whether trust is a factor, something. I don't know. So ask
Mhm.
questions about belonging. And then ownership mindset. Really question myself. Do I feel helpless in any of these things? To name when I don't feel I have agency, which is a part of ownership mindset, and to ask myself and to create norms, agreements around the belief, I believe that by being responsible, I can change things. If I don't believe that I agree to voicing that, or something, how can I be supported? Maybe this could be a guiding question. How could I be supported around having ownership over compliance? Which I think a lot of the way that we do norms, the best that we can do is compliance. This is Becca's opinion. But I think typically the way that we do norms, we're actually limiting um, behaviors to compliance over ownership, which we actually want ownership over compliance, right? Those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think that is a great idea. And first of all, I want to hear how it goes when you do that, but I also want to try it. So I
Okay.
want to take your catalyst mindsets. I want to develop norms with my next group using it,
Okay.
and then we come back together and compare notes.
Yes.
I love the ownership one because I think that goes back to, again, like I'm taking ownership of what I'm going to get out of this day or this team. And that is super important. And that's really all we can ask of anyone. Norms are not like, I'm going to control you with this norm. Norms are like, let me take a look at myself.
Hmm.
Am I doing all I can do to be productive in this meeting? So I think we know our norms are working
Hmm.
when we have to push against them.
Hmm.
That's when we know if they're working. When things go off the rails,
Hmm.
then and we have to refer back to the norms. Does it help us? So this is why the reflection piece is so important. So whether it's at the end of a day, if it's a one-day thing, at the mid-year, end of year, if you're on a team, kind of ask yourself that, like, are these really working for our benefit?
Hmm.
Do we feel like we are a productive group? Do we
Hmm.
look forward to coming to this meeting?
Hmm.
Those types of questions too can kind of help people decide if our norms are doing what we want them to do.
Yes, I love it. All right, so we're going to wrap up here. This has been a fascinating conversation. The stance that I have now after this conversation is uh I don't think norms in general are ineffective. I think we can do norms ineffectively. And I would like to challenge myself and everyone listening to think outside the box and question, are the norms positively impacting behavior change so that it creates that psychological safety you're talking about? And if it doesn't, step one, stop doing it. Stop. If it's ineffective, just
Right,
stop.
right.
Right. And then step two, start to think outside the box and question, how could I bring norms that represent our values, right? Isn't just about control and compliance. So that's my stance is we can do norms effectively. We just need to think outside the box. What's your stance after this conversation?
I agree. And my stance after this conversation is we could go even deeper into
Yeah.
norm. And I think the deeper we go, the more they will work for us. So
Mhm.
I expect my norm developing skills to grow after this conversation. And
Yeah.
again, I want to try the catalyst mindset approach. I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting. And we'll get back together and see how that works.
Yeah. Oh, I love this so much. Okay, good. So we're gonna wrap up. I would love you to share something that about Mia Pumo. Those of you who have never heard of her, she is the creator of Coach Fest, an annual coaching conversation that has like a retreat-like vibe,
Yeah.
which I love. So I'd love you to share with folks like what is happening in the
Mhm.
future of Coach Fest.
Yes, we are in the process of planning the next event, and it's going to be November of 2026. So, November 4th and 5th in the Asheville, North Carolina area. I'll just say that.
Yes.
So, we're just signing the agreement with the venue. So, very excited. Save the dates will be coming out soon.
Mhm.
It is a conference and retreat all about coaching and education. So, if you're an instructional coach, if you are a leader of any kind of school, a district leader who coaches others or leads a team of coaches, this event has the most amazing speakers. Becca will be there.
I will be there.
Um, but also we weave in and we're going to lean into this even more this time. This is our fifth event, so it's going to be next level. But leaning into the retreat part to really help people to unwind, to have some time to breathe, to reflect, to take care of themselves, to connect with their team if they come with a team or a colleague. And network with people they don't know. We learn so much from other people. We expect somewhere between 200 and 300 people, so lots of people to connect with and learn from. So, yeah, I
I love
am
it.
excited. We will put a link, I
In the
believe
show
that.
notes. Yep.
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 And then we'll
Yep.
have more information coming out soon.
Perfect. And just so everyone knows, this is Mia. We are recording this in November 2025. So all of this, all these things that she's doing right now will be totally done. This will air sometime probably in April 2026. So all of this stuff will be ready, going. We'll have a link for you to register in the show notes, like when you hear this episode. So just know things are being done right now, and it will be ready for
Yeah,
you to register once
we'll
this
be taking
episode comes
registrations
out.
by then for sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love it. Mia, thank you for coming on the show, for debating with me publicly. This was such a fun conversation for me, and I value you as a colleague and a friend.
I feel the exact same way. And it was great fun. And I learned something, as I always do when I talk to you. So thank you.
Same here.